Hello, YouTube friends. Ben Ochart here. Thank you so much for tuning in. You know, when I get comments below that you folks are so generous in sharing with me, one of the comments that I honestly don't like to hear is, I just started my tank and all my fish are dying. I hate hearing that comment, and very often I know what's going on. What's happened is that you've introduced into that tank the production of more ammonia than the existing bacteria can actually handle. This is the equivalent of what we call an ammonia spike, and ammonia is a very deadly substance. It is lethal. It kills the fish. And this is because the tank was simply not cycled correctly. To cycle the tank, you need ammonia, and that ammonia is produced by waste. Some people have been known to throw a piece of shrimp in the tank. Some people will add, other things that can start to deteriorate or produce ammonia. Some people I've even heard add ammonia to the tank. But you need to have ammonia. Ammonia is a good thing. It starts the process, and then a form of bacteria will develop that will eat that ammonia. And it'll gobble it up, and as it gobbles it up, it will produce its waste, its byproduct, which is nitrite. And then another kind of bacteria will come along and gobble up the nitrite. When you have zero ammonia, based on your test kits, and zero nitrite, you now have a cycled tank that's going to give you a reading of anywhere from 10 to 80 nitrate. At that point, with maybe a water change, you are going to be safe. You're going to be able to introduce fish gradually, and they will make it. But if you introduce those fish before that tank has reduced its ammonia and reduced its nitrite to zero, and you start feeding and producing fish waste that is producing ammonia that is greater than the beneficial bacteria in your tank can handle, then you're going to have problems and you're going to have a die-off. This can even happen after you have an established tank and you introduce too much stock too fast. The amount of waste can exceed the ability of the bacteria to keep up. You have an ammonia spike and your fish die off. So you have to be aware of and be measuring and determining how you're doing with ammonia. The best way to do that is with test kits, even if it's just Tetra 6-in-1 strips, something inexpensive. Be testing the water in particular in the very beginning when you're setting up the tank, and when you have zero ammonia, zero nitrite, and anywhere from 10 to 80 nitrate, you have a cycled tank. And now you need patience, because it's very tempting to go out and just buy 20, 25 beautiful fish and put them in, and then you'll slowly watch them die until the beneficial bacteria can catch up. So when you're starting up your tank, introduce those fish gradually, and the bacteria will actually build up accordingly, and you'll be good to go. Now, this ties a little bit into that idea of, can you over-filter? You're going to have as much beneficial bacteria as you're feeding and no more. What that means is, if you have 6 canisters on this tank behind me, and I'm feeding my fish what I'm feeding them, and I have a certain number of fish, I'm only going to be able to feed a certain amount of bacteria, and it will be spread out over 6 canisters. However, those 6 canisters will provide me a lot of space for more bacteria growth to accommodate and to compensate for, as my fish put on size and require more food and produce more waste, and also for the adding of additional stock. So when it comes to overfiltration, keep in mind you're only going to have the amount of bacteria you're going to have. However, water turnover and the potential for more beneficial bacteria is always a good thing, even though some people feel that your substrate and your decor probably provides enough to accommodate quite a bit of beneficial bacteria. So, in many cases, when I hear that comment, and I hate to hear it, either through social media, I get a personal message, or it shows up at the Facebook group, or sometimes in a comment down below one of my videos, I lost all my fish, I have a brand new tank, all my fish died, what happened? More often than not, the key ingredient, patience, was missing, and the adding of fish was hurried. Now, here are a couple tips. When you're setting up a tank, get somebody who has a tank and ask them for a cup of substrate. Put that substrate in a mesh bag and throw it into your tank. Give it a couple weeks and it will help to add beneficial bacteria. Or get some sponge media and keep it in tank water until you can add it to one of your filters, and then add it to your filter and it will add beneficial bacteria. There are also products you can buy, Chem Stability, Dr. Tim's, API Quick Start. There are some products that add bacteria to the tank. However, that bacteria does need ammonia to eat, and that ammonia has to come from products that are wasting, from byproducts that are decaying, such as rotting food or the waste of fish. Okay, so there is a balance here, and the best way to determine how you're doing with that balance is with testing the water. So the key ingredient, and I'll stress it again, is patience when you're setting up a tank. In the middle of all of this, you might get a bacterial bloom and your water will get cloudy. Just persist and carry on and it will pass. Don't get into a lot of massive water changes or the addition of chemicals. Again, patience. Things will actually come around. So it's not always entirely the case. You could always, of course, have disease and things of this nature. But more often than not, when you're setting up a new tank and the fish have died, you have outpaced the ability of the beneficial bacteria to deal with the amount of waste and ammonia that is being produced. You will develop a bacteria that will consume that ammonia. Its byproduct, after it's gobbled up the ammonia, will be nitrite. Nitrite is then gobbled up by another kind of bacteria, and that byproduct, the byproduct from that process, will be nitrate. And nitrate you remove with water changes, and of course plants can consume it, but you need an enormous amount of plants to really make a big difference. And of course there's anaerobic bacteria that can live deep in the substrate, and sometimes you can achieve it with a slow gallon per hour filtration, but that gets a little bit complicated, and many folks really have tried that and have not been successful. I know a limited number of folks that have pulled off anaerobic bacteria that can consume nitrates. So usually you're going to be stuck with water changes and things of that nature. So at any rate, that's my tip. My tip is certainly introduce bacteria, introduce the right pace of ammonia into the tank, develop that beneficial bacteria. When you get an ammonia and nitrite level of 0 and a nitrate level of anywhere from 10 to 80, you know you're good to go, and start adding fish gradually, and let the bacteria keep pace with your addition of fish. All right? And I hope this helps. I hope those of you who are starting up a tank don't experience buying a bunch of stock, falling in love with these beautiful fish, and then watching them die off one by one. That's a very bad scene. I hope this video helps you prevent that, okay? thank you so much. Be sure to comment below. Your comments are definitely read and appreciated, and I thank you so much for tuning in.